Deep inside the echoing halls of the Boeing plant, a mechanical leviathan awakens. The air smells of hot rivets, machine oil, and the quiet determination of a workforce mobilized for a looming storm. Hundreds of thousands of individual parts, machined to exacting tolerances, are brought together by hands that once built cars and radios. The B-17 flying fortress begins its life here, amid the relentless rhythm of the heavy assembly line. Notice the massive radial engines being carefully hoisted into place. Each of those power plants requires a staggering amount of precision engineering. The Wright Cyclones are complex beasts, demanding intricate oiling systems and exhaust-driven superchargers that will eventually allow these bombers to breathe in the freezing, thin air of the stratosphere. It takes a highly specialized touch to mount these 1,200 horsepower engines securely to the immense aluminum wings. The men and women moving these metal giants are pioneers of mass production, inventing new assembly techniques on the fly. Consider the sheer volume of fasteners alone. Securing the skin to the skeletal frame requires driving hundreds of thousands of rivets. It is an ear-splitting, bone-rattling process demanding perfect synchronization between two workers. The logistics of mating those massive wings to the central fuselage represents a towering triumph of industrial design. By the time the massive rear doors roll open, a machine of unprecedented destructive power stands ready. Air Force officers cast exacting eyes over the polished aluminum, checking the freshly installed .50 caliber machine guns. These initial armaments are meticulously inspected by civilian defense workers to ensure flawless operation under extreme stress. Deep within the belly of the beast, technicians carefully hoist inert training ordnance into the sprawling bomb bays, testing the intricate mechanical release systems. Pushing these early production models out onto the tarmac requires raw muscle and sweat. Before the widespread use of heavy mechanized tow tractors, human backs strain against the 30,000-pound weight. The early models rolling out here laid the foundation for daylight precision bombing. The workers watching them go know they have birthed a towering achievement of human ingenuity, meeting the dire demands of a troubled decade with steel and unmatched resolve.
Savoia-Marchetti SM-79 Sparviero. With its unmistakable three-engine design and a prominent dorsal hump, one aircraft came to represent Italian air power in the Second World War, the Savoia-Marchetti SM-79, nicknamed the Sparviero, or Sparrowhawk. Originally conceived in the mid-1930s as a fast 8-passenger transport, the SM-79 shattered numerous world speed records in its civilian form. Its mixed construction of wood, fabric, and metal resulted in a lightweight yet robust airframe, and its 3 Alfa Romeo engines gave it performance that few bombers of its era could match. Its military potential was quickly realized, and the Sparviero first saw combat during the Spanish Civil War, flying for the Italian Legionary Air Force. There it established itself as a potent and effective level bomber. However, the Sparviero would earn its most enduring and fearsome reputation over the waters of the Mediterranean Sea. Converted to serve as a torpedo bomber, it became the bane of Allied naval convoys. The brave crews of the Aerosilluratori, as the Italian torpedo bomber pilots were known, specialized in daring low-level attack runs. They would fly just feet above the waves to evade enemy radar and concentrated anti-aircraft fire, pressing their attacks on Royal Navy warships with incredible skill and determination. Throughout the North African and Mediterranean campaigns, the SM-79 was responsible for sinking or crippling dozens of Allied vessels. Yet, for all its success, the Sparrowhawk was not invincible. Its primary weakness was its defensive armament. The collection of machine guns in the dorsal hump and ventral gondola proved inadequate against modern, cannon-armed Allied fighters like the British Beaufighter, which was specifically tasked with hunting them. As the war dragged on, the skies grew increasingly lethal for the aging Sparviero. After the Italian armistice in 1943, the SM-79 story continued. It flew for both the pro-Allied Italian co-belligerent Air Force and the pro-Axis Air Force in northern Italy. A testament to its solid design, some were even used as military transports long after the war, with the very last Sparviero being retired in 1952. From a record-breaking airliner to a feared torpedo bomber, the Savoia-Marchetti SM-79 Sparviero remains one of history's most iconic aircraft, a symbol of Italian engineering and the courage of the crews who flew it.
Look to the skies, America. There she is, the heavy-hitting hammer of the 8th Air Force, the consolidated B-24 Liberator. While the Fortress holds the line, the Liberator expands the front. You are looking at a marvel of modern engineering that has turned the tide of battle from the Channel coast to the heart of the Reich. Note the high-mounted wing, the famous Davis design. It's thin, it's long, and it slices through the air with an efficiency that allows this bird to carry a heavier payload faster and farther than any other heavy bomber in our arsenal. See those bomb bay doors? They don't swing open like barn doors, dragging in the wind. They roll up into the fuselage like a garage shutter, keeping our speed high right up to the moment of delivery. And delivery is what this ship is all about. Thanks to the wizards at Willow Run, American industry is pumping out one of these four-engine giants every single hour. It is the sheer weight of numbers, combined with advanced tricycle landing gear and a 10-man crew of the finest boys from back home, that is dismantling the enemy war machine brick by brick. This is the Liberator, the long arm of liberty reaching across the Atlantic.
The Empire of Japan has not lost a naval battle in 300 years. The Japanese fleet will be at Midway, numerically superior in all classes of ships. But their intelligence is faulty. The Japanese believe the main strength of the American fleet is still in Hawaii or in Australian waters. The Japanese believe their attack on Midway will be a complete surprise. Hidden behind a bad weather front, the Japanese fleet moves to Midway. Midway is prepared as Pearl Harbor was not. Although the Marines are outnumbered, the island is on the alert. The Air Force sends as many B-17s to Midway as the island can handle. A force of 17 heavy bombers is gathered on the island. Within a few hours after the planes arrive, they are ordered into the air to make long-range searches. Although we know the Japanese are coming, we do not know exactly where they are. Early in the morning of June 4th, 1942, the decisive contact is made. Enemy carriers are reported. Enemy planes are seen inbound toward Midway. Admiral Nomura knows he must launch a stronger attack against the island, but if he is to strengthen his attack force, he must use his reserves. The Japanese reserve planes are armed with torpedoes. If they are to attack Midway, bombs must be substituted for torpedoes. The Japanese admiral does not know that the American carriers are in the vicinity. He orders the change from torpedoes to bombs. While the change in weapons is being made, the Japanese carriers are vulnerable to air attack. This is the turning point of the Pacific War.
On the other side of the world, other air forces are spearheading the attack on Tokyo. In December 1943, Cape Gloucester, a projection off the western end of New Britain, was bombed, strafed, and softened up prior to an amphibious landing by the ground forces. In the 2 weeks preceding the H-hour of this D-Day, B-25s flew 511 of the 1,215 sorties against this objective. From December 10th through December 26th, D-Day, more than 3,000 tons of bombs were dropped on gun positions, coastal installations, beach and bivouac areas, and thousands of rounds of ammunition and 75mm shells were poured into Japanese positions.
War is the mother of improvisation, and nowhere is this more evident than in the Pacific War. Here, the rule book regarding Army aviation has been thrown overboard. We are witnessing a peculiar marriage of convenience between the Army Air Forces and the Navy. These P-47 Thunderbolts, aircraft designed for the crushed rock runways of Europe, are now perched precariously on the heaving flight decks of escort carriers. Lacking tail hooks for landing, they are strictly a one-way ticket. The catapult fires them into the humid air, sending the heavy fighters toward the captured airfields of Saipan. But the innovation does not stop at the launch. The 318th Fighter Group is rewriting the manual on close air support. They are fitting these metal giants with 5-inch high-velocity aircraft rockets, turning a fighter plane into flying artillery. Furthermore, they are testing a fearsome new incendiary mixture known as napalm. Housed in drop tanks usually reserved for fuel, this jellied gasoline transforms the P-47 from a precision strafer into an instrument of total area denial. In the rugged terrain of the Marianas, where the enemy digs deep into caves and foliage, the Thunderbolt has evolved. It is no longer just a dogfighter. It is a sledgehammer swinging in the Pacific theater. The Republic P-47 Thunderbolt is a study in excess, a 7-ton beast that defies the very concept of a lightweight fighter. To the men who wrench on her, she is the Jug, a moniker derived from her resemblance to a milk jug, though her performance suggests the sheer force of a juggernaut. What makes this fuselage so massive is not merely armor, but a complex respiratory system hidden beneath the skin. The mighty Pratt & Whitney double Wasp engine up front demands a massive turbo supercharger, which the designers placed all the way in the tail.
The Pacific Ocean is a battlefield of infinite distance. For years, the enemy believed these waters were a shield, a vast moat protecting their homeland from the fires of war. They were wrong. We are witnessing the culmination of the greatest logistical achievement in history, the conquest of the air over Japan. The instrument of this victory is the Boeing B-29 Superfortress, a machine so advanced it renders all previous bombers obsolete. Consider the engineering marvel sitting on the tarmac of Guam, Saipan, and Tinian. This is the first bomber to offer a fully pressurized cabin, allowing crews to operate at 30,000 feet in shirt-sleeve comfort, free from the cumbersome flight suits and oxygen masks required in Europe. Defensive armament has leaped forward as well. Gone are the days of gunners manually wrestling heavy machine guns against the slipstream. The Superfortress utilizes a revolutionary General Electric central fire control system. Gunners sit in sighting blisters using analog computers to remotely direct 5 turrets, tracking enemy fighters with mathematical precision. It is the most complex aircraft ever mass-produced, a $3 billion gamble that paid off. But the bomber is only half the story. To strike the heart of the enemy, these giants must fly 1,500 miles over open water, face the flak and fighters of the mainland, and return. They do not go alone. From the sulfurous rock of Iwo Jima rise the Little Friends, the North American P-51 Mustangs. These are not the short-range interceptors of the early war. Equipped with drop tanks and the legendary Merlin engine, they fly the longest fighter escort missions ever attempted, a round trip of 7 hours or more. It is a grueling test of pilot endurance, sitting in a cramped cockpit for the duration of a transatlantic flight, only to engage in dogfights over Tokyo. The film you are about to see, The Last Bomb, captures this relentless offensive in vivid technicolor. It documents the sheer scale of the 21st Bomber Command under General Curtis LeMay. You will see the coordination of hundreds of aircraft, the precision of the incendiary raids that dismantled the enemy's war industry, and the final, terrible blow that brought an empire to its knees. This is the reality of modern air power, methodical, overwhelming, and unstoppable.
In the vast, dark expanse of the Pacific War, a different kind of hunter prowled the night skies. They were not sleek fighters, but lumbering, long-range flying boats with a deadly purpose. We now uncover the incredible history of the PBY Catalina patrol bombers in The Story of the Black Cats. Now restored and in full color, this film reveals the crucial, often overlooked role of these versatile aircraft. Painted black for camouflage, the Black Cats flew daring, low-level missions under the cover of darkness. They became the scourge of Japanese shipping, disrupting vital supply lines with torpedoes and bombs. A fascinating part of their story is their dual role. By day, these same aircraft transformed into angels of mercy. Known as Dumbos, they flew perilous air-sea rescue missions, saving countless downed airmen from the sea. This is the story of the crews who mastered the slow but resilient PBY, turning it into a legendary weapon and a symbol of hope in the lonely Pacific.
June 1941. A new front is opened in the Great War. The full might of the German Luftwaffe is unleashed upon Russia. The very spear tip of this aerial assault is this machine, the Heinkel HE-111. This is the backbone of the Reich's bomber force. To the world in the 1930s, this was a harmless civilian transport, a sleek, fast airliner for the German state airline Lufthansa. This airliner was designed from the start with a hidden vertical bomb bay. It was a wolf in sheep's clothing, a bomber built in the shadows, waiting for this very day. Its most striking feature is its revolutionary nose. The older models, which served in Spain and Poland, had a conventional stepped cockpit. But this new generation features a fully glazed, asymmetric glass nose. This stepless cockpit gives the pilot and the bombardier an unparalleled panoramic view of the battlefield below. It is a flying observation post and a deadly gun platform in one. Now this secret weapon, proven in the skies over Britain, is turned east. Their mission? To shatter the Soviet airfields, to sever the supply lines, and to pulverize the Red Army's defenses before they can even mobilize. This is not a nimble machine, it is a workhorse. Its crews know its defenses are light against modern fighters. Their survival depends on rugged construction and, above all, tight mutual defensive fire. This is the sledgehammer of the Blitzkrieg, the machine tasked with breaking the Soviet Union from the air. The goal is total annihilation of the enemy's logistics. On the ground, the great panzer armies advance, but it is this machine that is tasked with clearing their path. Look at the crews. Young men flying in a glass bubble, exposed, relying on their gunners and the fellowship of the formation. Their world is one of constant vibration, the unceasing roar of the Jumo engines, and the ever-present threat of flak or a sudden attack from an enemy fighter. But the Russian land is vast, a sea of earth that seems to swallow armies and machines. The Heinkel, with its great range, is pushed to its absolute limits, flying missions deep into the Soviet heartland, often returning on fumes. As the summer advance fades, a new, undefeated enemy appears, the Russian winter. This is a foe that no gunner can fight, a cold so brutal it freezes oil solid and turns metal brittle. The Heinkel, the proud bomber, is now forced into a new, desperate role, a makeshift transport. It becomes a lifeline, a fragile thread to the encircled armies at places like Stalingrad. It is a testament to its tough, reliable design. It is a true workhorse. A machine that has become the enduring symbol of the Luftwaffe's striking power on this, the most brutal front of the war.
The year is 1944. The fortress of Europe is besieged. From the west, the white cliffs of Dover send forth a daily thunder of engines. From the south, the airfields of Italy launch their own armadas. But the heart of the enemy Reich lies deep, hidden behind hundreds of miles of flak towers and fighter squadrons. To strike the vitals of the German war machine in the east, the oil refineries of Poland, the marshalling yards of Hungary, requires a flight of extraordinary peril. Normally, a bomber drops its load and turns back, fighting its way home through the same gauntlet of steel it just survived. But the United States Army Air Forces have conceived a new geometry of war. A plan so audacious, it requires the cooperation of superpowers separated by ideology, but united in battle. The code name is Operation Titanic. The weapon of choice is the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress, a four-engine giant that has become the symbol of American resolve. Flying alongside them are the sleek Silver Guardians, the P-51 Mustangs. Together, they are embarking on a mission with no return ticket to England. The strategy is shuttle bombing. Instead of turning back, these formations push forward. They fly over the burning targets, over the crumbling lines of the Eastern Front, and into the mysterious vastness of the Soviet Union. It is a triangular superhighway in the sky, England to Russia, Russia to Italy, Italy back to England. To make this possible, a logistical miracle was performed in secret. Thousands of tons of steel matting, high-octane gasoline, and American mechanics were transported over dangerous Arctic convoys to the plains of Ukraine. There, amidst the ruins of war, American air bases rose from the mud. This operation changes the calculus of the entire war. With bases in Russia, there is no place left in Europe for the Luftwaffe to hide. We can strike the enemy from behind, land, rearm, and strike him again on the return trip. But beyond the strategic brilliance, there is a human story here. When those B-17 touched down on Soviet soil, it is the first time many of these young Americans have met their Eastern allies. It is a meeting of East and West, sharing soup and cigarettes on the wing of a bomber, united by a single driving purpose: the unconditional defeat of the Axis powers. This is the story of that brief historic handshake. This is Operation Titanic.
Claude Dornier's connection with the Nazis was more ambiguous. The Dornier Company had not been so dependent on military aircraft orders, and his personal attitude towards the Nazis is not recorded. Apart from the continuing success of his flying boats, Dornier produced only one key production aircraft series based on the Do-17. Unlike other German aircraft at the time, the Do-17 was originally intended as passenger transport, but Lufthansa rejected the machine because of its cramped cabin. However, its high speed and maneuverability made it an excellent military aircraft. The Luftwaffe placed large orders, and mass production began in 1937. Despite its success in the early months of the war, the Do-17 soon proved inadequately armed, and Dornier produced an improved version, the Do-215, with a larger cockpit for greater visibility and a position for a rear-facing gun under the nose. Dornier's pioneering spirit was also to produce one of the most advanced fighters to fly in the war. The Do-335 was conceived to meet the demands for a high-speed, high-altitude interceptor. Dornier went back to a patent of 1937 for a unique twin-engined arrangement, one pulling from the nose and one pushing from the tail. In 1939, extensive trials with models began, largely to determine the effect of engine weight in the tail. Because of the rear prop, a tricycle undercarriage was essential. The first test flight took place in 1941, with Dornier anxious to see the results of this radical new design. After initial trials, the aircraft reached a speed of nearly 480 miles per hour, faster than any other prop aircraft of the war. Full production was ordered. Although of the 60 that were completed, only 20 reached combat units by 1945. But this was not the end of Claude Dornier's involvement with this aircraft. The last surviving example was taken to America in 1946, where it was placed in storage. Decades later, Dornier brought it back to Germany and began its restoration. Despite the difficulty of finding spares, Dornier's engineers managed to reassemble the aircraft and return it to its original condition. It now stands as the only existing example of a tandem prop aircraft of that era in the world.